Okay, good evening. Um, I'd like to begin the share by presenting two psukim. Okay, I'm sorry for the way it looks, but I had to put it together. This is speaking about Shavuos, fellas. This is speaking about the Kabbanis born on Shavuos. Good? So it says, V'yikraftem al halechem, you should bring al halechem, shiva kvasim, tamimim, 7 sheeps, b'nei shana a year old, upar ben bakar echad, 1 par, ve'elim shnoyim, a total of 10. So, but it's 7 kvasim, 1 par, ve'elim, yiyu min chasam neskehem, isharech l'chol Hashem. Okay, in addition, v'asisim sirachatas. This is speaking what you're bringing on Shuas. There's a second pasha. V'kraftem oila l'reich nichayach l'Hashem, not par, parim b'nei bakar, not 1 ayil, shnayim ayil echad, shiva kvasim b'nei shana. These shiva kvasim, fellas, are not the same as these shiva kvasim. These shiva kvasim are ala lechem. They're associated with the lechem. They brought us all to the lechem. These are in Bamidbar. These are musafim. These are musafim, and this is a very good introduction to the shir. I'm very, very happy about it. That I the last minute, that's the delay. I put it together in presenting it. So now you have an idea. There's 2 shinuyim. One is that it says 1 par in Parshas Vayikra, and it says 2 par in Bamidbar and Pinchas. It says 2 elim in Vayikra in Emor, and it says 1 ayil in Mad. Okay, so those are the 2 major differences. Now, going along with the flow of what we've been discussing until now, what are ma'akev each other? So now we're going to begin on Mem Dalin Amid Beis. Mem Dalin Amid Beis. Haparim va'elim va'kvasim einem ma'akvin zeh. So that's a very ambiguous statement. Bulls, rams, sheeps, or shepseluch, as Nassim would say, right? Einem ma'akvin zeh. They're not ma'akev each other. The Gemara is going to ask, what bulls, sheep, what are we speaking about? Which kabbanis? There's so many of them, right? Reb Shimon says, Reb Shimon, Im hayu lehem parim merubim. If you had money and you could buy a lot of parim, but you wouldn't have money to purchase nesachim, yavi par echad, you bring 1 par unesachim. Yakrivu kulam b'lei nesachim. So you have X amount of money to spend. Be sure you're going to spend it on a par and its nesach. In other words, it better, it says Rav Shimon, than spending it on 2 parim. That's Rav Shimon's statement. Okay, now the Mishnah said these parim, these elims, kvasim are not ma'akiv. Hani parim kvasim dehecha. Which ones are we speaking about? Which ones are we speaking about? Elaim with the chag. Guys, we know the parim on the chag, right? They start off and they go down and down and down. It says kimishpat tamksiv. Now that's the magic word for what? For ikov, kimishpatam. What does that mean? Azoidav zayin. That's the way it has to be. Yiyu, kimishpatam, chuka. We have words that what? Okay, so this is one of them. So they can't be speaking about sukkahs, right? Ella, the Rosh Chodesh. It must be speaking about the ones on Rosh Chodesh. You bring 2 parim, 7 kvasim, and 1 ayil. You bring 10. V'atzeres and atzeres. The Chumash Bekudim. So it's speaking about Rosh Chodesh, and it's speaking about what? The Karbonis on Atzeres, that on Pashas Chumash Bekudim refers to the one that we just read, guys, in Perek of Ches and Pinchas, right? That they're not ma'akev each other. So that's what we're speaking about. That these Karbonis are not, in other words, they're not ma'akev each other. That what? You can bring one without the other. You can bring one the other. Now, here's the problem. The Mishnah said Elim. The Mishnah said rams. So the Gemara wants to know, Elim dehecha. Idahanu, if you're speaking about Rosh Chodesh and Atzeres, the ayil who? It's only 1 ayil. By Rosh Chodesh, guys. If you're speaking about Rosh Chodesh, it's 1 ayil. Ida Atzeres, the Taurus Kahanim. In other words, you have I didn't put it over here. On Rosh Chodesh, it says one ayil. Guys, why does it say in Parshas Pekudim, in Parshas, meaning in Bamidbar? V'kraftem oilo l'reich nichoich Hashem parim b'nei baka shnayim ayil echad. The Mishnah said elim. Here it says what? Ayil. So it can't be referring to this one. Now, obviously, you have that what? It could be referring to this one, because this one says elim shnayim. Good. So now, elim dehecha. Idahanu, if it's speaking about what? That Rish Chodesh and Atzeres and Parshas Bamidbar, the ayil who, it's only one ayil. Ida Atzeres the Torah's Kahanim, and if it's this part, this upper one in Torah's Kahanim in Vayikra and Emor, right? Havayiksiv. Guys, what does it say over here? Vikraftem alolechem shiva kvasim tmimim b'nei shana upar ben baka echad ve'elim shnoyim. What is that word? Yiyu. What does yiyu mean? It's like Kamishpat. It's got, that's the way it's got to be. So I have a problem. In other words, I have a logistical problem and I got a halachic problem. It's very geschmack. I'm really glad I put it out there, right? It makes such a difference seeing in front of you, right? It makes such a difference. So here you go. If you're going to tell me it's speaking about Rosh Chodesh or the Parsha of Atzeres in Parshas Pinchas, it says one ayil. We say elim. So therefore, it must be the elim. Which elim are not ma'akiv? It must be the ones in Parshas Emor. That says two. But in the same Parsha, it says yiyu. And that is ma'akiv. So I'm stuck. What does the Mishnah mean, guys? What does the Mishnah mean? Geshmaka, very Baruch Hashem. What does the Mishnah mean? So it says the Gemara, la'olam de atzeres the Torah's kahanim. Itaka means Parshas Emor, guys. Itaka means Parshas Emor. V'hachi ka'amar. Like, elim the Torah's kahanim ma'akvale la'ayel the chumash ha'pikudim v'loy ayel the chumash ha'pikudim ma'akvale la'elim the Torah's kahanim. Right? The ayel of the elim that are in the ayel that is in the two that are in Emor, right? Ma'akvele the ayel, the ma'akiv the ayel in chumash pikudim, the ma'akiv the one that's in chumash pikudim. V'lo el the chumash pikudim ma'akvelu le'elim. So if I have the two elim, I bring that. If I don't have the two elim, then the ma'akiv the one of what in Parshas Pinchas. The ma'akiv the one in Parshas Pinchas. So the two take precedent. That's what you're telling me. Again, one more time. You're telling me we don't know where it's going on. Is this ma'akiv? What's ma'akiv? Elim is a problem, right? Because it's they are ma'akiv each other. The elim are ma'akiv each other, and ayil is, if it's one ayil, it said elim. So what exactly is it going on? And for the Gemara, I'll tell you what's going on. Loi elim de Torah's kahana ma'ak v'leila ayil d'chmish b'kudim. Loi el. I said it wrong the first time. Loi elim the Torah's kahanim ma'ak v'leila ayil d'chmish b'kudim. Loi el d'chmish b'kudim ma'ak v'leila elim the Torah's kahanim. I can bring the two without the one. I can bring the one without the two. I can't bring the two. The two are gebunded together. But I have this one and this one. So go back to the Mishnah now, guys. Parim, the parim, the elim, and the elim. Which elim? The elim of Atzeres. And in Atzeres we have two elim where? In Parshas Emor. We have one ayil in Parshas Pinchas. The one did not ma'akiv each other. That's what it means, ein ma'akiv. Guys, you good? That's what it means, ein ma'akiv. That they're not ma'akiv. In other words, if you don't bring the one, you still can bring the two. If you don't bring the two, you still can bring the one. So lo elim the Torah's kahanim ma'akvele la'el d'chumash b'kudim, lo el d'chumash b'kudim ma'akvele la'elim the Torah's kahanim. El parim da afilu adadi lo ma'akve, but the parim that lo ma'akva, the elim the hacha hu de lo ma'akva, inu ma'akva. Okay, so now you have, as I said, the parim are not ma'akiv each other. If you only have one, you can bring it. But the elim are. The elim are. So let's look at the pasuk again. So it says over here, these elim are ma'akiv each other, guys. These elim you have to bring together. These parim are not ma'akiv each other, right? The kfasim, as we're going to see, are also not ma'akiv each other. So the Gemara is going to have a problem then that our Mishnah is not halachically, it's not synonymous. Take a look at our Mishnah. Ha-parim, are the parim ma'akiv each other, guys? No. Elim, are the elim ma'akiv each other? Yes. They're not ma'akiv, the one in Bamidbar, but they are ma'akiv each other. The akfasim are not ma'akiv. So we got a problem. We got a no, yes, no problem. It's not the same. Guys, you hear the Mishnah. You got a problem. It's no, yes, no. So how does it work? So let's see the Gemara inside. The elim ma'akva. Inu, but the elim themselves ma'akva. Tana mili. So we have a kasha, guys. What's a kasha? The parim are not ma'akiv. The kfasim are not ma'akiv. The elim are ma'akiv. Right? So you have in the question, guys, look at this no, yes, no. And for the Gemara, Tana Mili Mili Ketani. They learn different, they're learning different things. The Parim, I'm Ma'akiv. The Elim, from Chumash to this one to this one, I'm not Ma'akiv. The ones in Achinami, the ones in Emar are Ma'akiv. And the Kvasim, both Kvasim are not Ma'akiv. That's Pshat. Okay, now, we're going to quote a pasuk in Yecheskel. According to Rashi, it's describing in the second bias. Usually, guys, when you get to Cheskel, you're describing the third bias, right? Over here, Rashi says it's speaking about the second bias. According to Rashi, it's speaking about the second bias. If you look at Rashi, go down a little bit. And he says, "V'hach nevuah the Yecheskel abayis sheni nisnava." You see, it says like a Yud Ches in the Shittim Kubetzes and Rashi, guys. You see the Yud Ches in the Shittim Kubetzes and Rashi. He says, "V'hach nevuah the Yecheskel al bayis sheni nisnava." Good, it's speaking about the bayis sheni. Okay, so now we're going to bring a bunch of pesukim from Yecheskel and see what halachos we can learn out. Says the Gemara. Now the pasuk says, "Uvayom hachodesh on Rosh Chodesh par ben bakar, one par tamimim, v'sheishes kvasim, and 6 kvasim, 6 sheep, v'ayil tamimim, and 1 ayil." This is nothing whatsoever. The only thing in common is the ayil. Guys, on Rosh Chodesh you bring 2 parim, not 1. You bring 7 kvasim, not 6. True, the ayil of Yecheskel and the ayil of Rosh Chodesh are the same. So now we're going to go ahead and darshan what's episode here. The pasuk doesn't make any sense. So it says the Gemara. Par ben bakar tamim b'shisha kvasim v'ayil tamim yu. Par ma tamid loymar l'chayr it's parim. L'fi shenema b'toira parim u'minayim shem loy matzah shnayim mevi echad tamid loymar par. You know what you're learning from Yecheskel, fellas? That they're not ma'akiv. The par, you would think that the parim are ma'akiv each other. They're not. Why? Because what does it say by Yecheskel? Par, singular. So it's not ma'akiv. Now you can figure it out why it says shisha kvasim, guys, right? Shisha kvasim matam eloima. Why does it say 6 kvasim? The fisha kosev b'toira shiva, because it says in the Torah 7. So you might think it's all 7 or not, but 6 not. But kamash malon 6. U'minayim shem loimatza shiva yavi shisha. Tamid loima shisha. U'minayim shem loimatza shisha yavi chamisha. Chamisha yavi abor. Abor yavi shleisha. Shleisha yavi shnayim. Vafilu echad tamid loimar u'kluvasim kasher tasik yodoi. The pasuk says later on. The pasuk says ve'efur lepor ve'efur la'ayil yasem mincha v'lakfasim kasher tasik yodoi. Right, whatever you can afford, even one. So now, guys, for the Gemara, an obvious question. If you can bring 1, right? So why do you have to tell me even 6? Obviously. The kama de efshal la dure madrin. And the answer is, as much as you can, you do the best you can. Guys, you might think like this. Guys, you bring 7, great. If you can't bring 7, right, you bring 1. In other words, so either one. But how do you know that it's better to go ahead in increments. Tamaboima, Shisha, Chamisha. That's what Shisha teaches me. That what? Even if you can't do 7, don't do just 1. Do as much as you can. Now, Uminayin Shema Akvin says, how do you know that they're ma'akiv each other? How do you know, right, that they're ma'akiv each other? Now, guys, you just told me a second ago they're not ma'akiv each other, right? So now you're telling me they are ma'akiv? Let's see Rashi. Uminayim Shema Akvin says, Im yeshlem parim shnayim, like kvasim shiva, de'in yecholim li kariv zeh b'lei zeh. Guys, you know what it means that the parim are not ma'akiv? It means if you only have 1 par. You know what it means that the kvasim are not ma'akiv? It means you only have 5 sheep or 4 sheep. How do you know if you have the full amount that they are ma'akiv? That's the Gemara's kasha. The Gemara's kasha, again, they are ma'akiv. If you have all of them. When does it say you're not ma'akiv? If you don't have all of them. Rashi's answering the kasha, guys, that, again, we just had a limud that what? That it's not ma'akiv. Now you're telling me it is. So how do you know it's ma'akiv? It says yiyu. It says yiyu, and since it says yiyu, that's the way it has to be. Guys, look at the pasuk. Do you have pasukim on the side? If you don't, the pasuk says, "Bayom hachodesh par ben baka tmimim shnei kfasim va'ayil tmimim yiyu in Yecheskel." What does yiyu mean? It's shayach ikuv. When's it shayach ikuv? If you don't bring all of them. Okay. Now we have more psukim by Yecheskel. Koyimar Hashem Elokim b'rishoin becha l'chodesh. On Rishon of the first of the chodesh, tikach par ben bakar tamim. You should bring a par ben bakar tamim, and what? V'chitesa es hamigdash. V'chitesa es hamigdash. That this par is a chatas. Fregmar chatas? Oilehi. Guys, this is not the par is an oila. Guys, the par, the elim, kvasim, these are all oilers. They're not chatas. So why is Yecheskel saying par is a chatas? Guys, you hear? Guys, you're telling me the par is a chatas. The par is an oila. It's Reish Chodesh. The par is an oila. It's not the only chatas on Reish Chodesh is the seir. The seir is mechaper. The par is an oila. It's not a chatas. So Rabbi Yochanan, parsha zu Eliyahu asa l'darsha. Says Rabbi Yochanan, the great Rabbi Yochanan said, you know what? This is teku. This is Tishvi, Yitaretz, Kushus, and Abayas. We're going to have to wait for Eliyahu and Navi to tell us Pshat. Good. Rav Ashi Yom, I'll tell you Pshat. Miluyim hikrivoi b'mei Ezra. Kiderech shekrivu b'mei Moshe. We know by the Chanukas on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, you had the Chanukas HaMishkan, HaMizbeach, everything, and you had the Miluyim for 8 days, right? You had Miluyim for 8 days, and this is Miluyim b'mei Ezra. Guys, the par is a chatas. Right, that's the teretz. The par is the chatas. Says Rashi. Rashi Amar, ani afreshena. I'll explain it. I don't have to wait for Eliyahu to come. Miluyim ikrivu, and miluyim. V'hach nevu di Yecheskel al bayesheni nisnave. Shekrivu miluyim. V'chi hechi dekrivu miluyim de Moshe b'shmini didu. The have Rosh Chodesh. The 8th day was Rosh Chodesh. Right. So too, Kidamina Masechta Shabbos b'Rishon Becha b'Chodesh. That day they lost the crowns because of the egel, the hikr of egel ben bakar, lechatas, hachanami hikr of par b'reish chodesh. So guys, says Rav Ashi, I'll explain. You know what the par? What this is mirroring. This is mirroring the miluyim. This is mirroring the miluyim. Just like the miluyim mad, it was a par was a chatas, and it was an egel. Then here is the par is a chatas. Geshmak, geshmak, geshmak. Any questions? We're good. Everyone's good. Good. Tanya Nami Hachi. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer. Parsha Zu Eliyahu Asid L'Darsha. Now this is a brisa. This is the Tan Rabbi Yehuda of our Lord. Parsha Zu Eliyahu Asid L'Darsha. Amalei Rabbi Yosi Miluyim Ikri. You know, it's Rabbi Yehuda says we have to wait for Eliyahu. Comes along the great Rabbi Yosi ben Chalafta. Miluyim Ikrivu b'mei Ezra. Kederesh Ikrivu b'mei Moshe. So in other words, Rav Ashi was zeicha to being mechaven to the great Rabbi Yosi. So Amuloi. So said Rabbi Yehuda to Rabbi Yosi, Tenuach daitcha sheheinachta daiti. You should have Yishuv Adas because you gave me Yishuv Adas. You know, guys, can you imagine? The pasuk was so schwer. The great Tana Rabbi Yehuda was so schwer he couldn't sleep. He had no yeshiva das. So he concluded, I have to wait for Eliyahu to come. And what did the great Rabbi Yossi do? He fatayished it to him. And he said, Gavaldig, you gave me, it's the most you can do. Tell someone a pshat. I say a story that the Viski Eloi, you have Yaakov Safsel, they were made on him, he said, 60 bat Gemara, Rashi, and Taisus in an hour. He's buried in a Har Menuchos, guys. He's buried in Har Menuchos in the Chelik HaRabbanim in the corner there. My uncle, Allah Shalom, Uncle Shul's wife, was an administrator in a nursing home. And she said, Shul, you got to listen to this guy. I don't know what. Anyway, Uncle Shul went, and he heard him, and he was saying Shas Bal Peh. He was saying Shas Bal Peh, the Viskiloi. Anyway, the story goes that he was in New York, and he had a kasha. And he thinking, who can answer this kasha? Because the only one who can answer this kasha is Rabbi Lezer Silva. So he got on a train. He went to Cincinnati, knocked on the door in the middle of the night, and he asked him the kasha. And he gave him a teretz. And according to legend, he turned around and came back to New York. He was bothered by the kasha of Yaakov Safsel, guys. Of Yaakov Safsel, called the Viska Eloi. Anyway, now we're going to discuss more interesting psukim in Yecheskel, fellas. That you'd be hard pressed to give an answer to explain. And any nevela treifa from a bird or from an animal, kahanim shanit. Kahanim hu lo yochel ha Yisrael achli. Guys, the pasuk in Yecheskel. Mashma, the kahanim can't eat it, but a regular Jew can. I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Parshazu Eliyahu asal darsha. No, Rabbi Yochanan, the great Rabbi Yochanan, guys. Rabbi Yochanan is the greatest of the Amoraim. Halach Rabbi Yochanan b'chol makom, except 3 places, right? With Reish Lakish, right? He said to him, I don't know. I have to wait for Eliyahu to give pshat. Ravina Amar Kohanim Yitzchachalei. Ravina says no. The chiddush is Kohanim. That the Kohanim, you had to tell me that Kohanim can't eat it. Sakadai Chamina Choyel ve'ishtri Malika ligabayu. Fellas, how did you go ahead and bring a chatas oif? What did you do? You nipped it in the back. We call that nevela. That's not a shchita. And so the Kohanim could eat nevela in the Beis Hamikdash. So tishtri nami nevela v'treifa. So I might think outside they also mutter kemashmal in the pasuk that they can't. So therefore, you needed to tell me v'chol nevela v'treifa min ha'oif m'reim the pasuk in Yecheskel liyochla Kohanim. You might make a mistake and think the Kohanim eat nevela already. They eat malika of chatas ha'oif. So you might think therefore the pasuk told me not. Okay, another pasuk in Yecheskel. V'chein taseh. Let me get this. This is mem. Hey. Okay, the pasuk says. V'chein taseh b'shiva b'chodesh meish shoige umepesi v'chipartem es habayis. What does that mean? Shiva. Rabbi Yochanan, Eila Shiva Shvatim Shechatu. Okay, let me do it outside first. You remember Hayros? That's one of our favorite Masechtas, 13 days of Geschmackheit. And we have the Par Helam Davashal Tzibur. The Bezdin Paskins, Roy V'Klal Yisrael, it's a psak in Chiyav Karis. Roy V'Klal Yisrael acts upon it. So you have to bring a parallel dav. Machloikas was a Klal Yisrael brings or a Sanhedrin brings it. That's what about if most of the Klal Yisrael doesn't? But Roiv a shavit does. One shavit, but Roiv the shavit does it. There's a day you bring it. This is the pasuk. So now here's the pasuk. Vashtei. It says. V'chein taseh b'shiva b'chodesh me'ish shoygim mipetim b'chatim esabayis shiva. What does shiva mean? Rabbi Yochanan eila shiva shvatim shechatu. The shiva is Roiv of 12. V'afal pishein Ruben shel kahal, even though it's not right by the kahal. In other words, fellas, if you did a census, you'd have more people not doing the avera, but you have roiv of the shvat of shevatim doing it, so you have a roiv of shvatim, even though you don't have roiv of. In other words, you have the electoral vote, even if you don't have what the general vote. right? You have the college, the electoral college, right? But yeah, you understand. Anyway, uh, so that's Chodesh. In Chitshu v'amru chelev muta meish shoige. It says what? It's ish shoige umi pesi. Malamashin chay me'ela halehelim davar im shigaga ma'isa. You have to act upon it. So it's not enough just to get a psak. You have to act upon it. So that you darshan a post like this: the chentase b'shiva, seven of the shvatim. B'chodesh, if they machadish a din in what in chelev, and shoige umi peti, and they act upon it. That this person, guys, this pasuk we dashed before by Nevela. If you might remember the Gemara in Shabbos, they went up to an addict. They said they went up to an addict to figure out these psukim, and if not for that, they would have been forgotten. They would have put away the Sefer Yecheskel. So Malihu Nigna Sefer Yecheskel. Hesh, there you go. Nigna Sefer Yecheskel. They would have gone ahead and put Sefer Yecheskel in the Geniza. Why? Because you couldn't explain it. Shayi Devarim Sleisim Divrei Torah. Because you have things that are slice of divrei Torah, such as that the Kahanim can't eat nevela, right? Ma'asa, what did Rabbi Chanina ben Chizkiah do? Hela shalish meres garvei shemen. He bought 300 barrels of shemen to keep the night oil burning, right? The night lamp burning. V'yoshev aliyah v'darshu, and he went darshan, and he came up with the answers to these what? To Sefer Yecheskel, the things that seem to be slice of the Torah. I guess this is Menachos' way of a little agarata, right? Rav Shimon, again, Rav Shimon say, if you have enough money to buy parim and nesachim, buy the parim and nesachim. Don't bring a par without its nesach, without its accompanying libations. Now here's another pasuk in Yecheskel, guys. Now we know it's shloisha esron lapar, shtei esron la'ayil, Isaran lekeves, right? Each one, the mincha proportionally goes down depending on the size of the animal. So listen to this pasuk. V'ish efa lepar ve'efa la'ayil yaseh mincha ulakfosim kasher tasig yodai v'shemen hi la'efa. Now, what does it mean efa lepar ve'efa la'ayil? It's not the same efa. It's a different share, fellas. But the pasuk in Yecheskel is mashma. It's the same. Says the Gemara, Tanum of Eifel lepar ve'eifel la'ayil yasa mincha v'lakfosim kasher tasig yadai v'shemen hin la'eifa. Amrav Shimon v'chi midas parim ve'elam achasi. They're not the same. Shleisha el esron lepar shleisha la'ayil. Ella shem hoyu lehem parim merubim v'lehoyu nesachim yaviu par echad nesachav v'yakrivu kulam b'loy nesachim. So the pasuk is coming to teach me that by saying that if you look at this Rashi. The halal minchas parim shleish esroinim minchas elam shnei esroinim v'laboa kosav elo lo diacha shemutav lehevi ayel echad im efasai mida haroi loy milahavi. In other words, it said the word efa, each one proportionally, that whatever it is, bring that rather than bring two elim, but bring an ayel and its proportional efa. V'hoyu lehem elim merubim v'lehavi le'efasan yaviu. If you don't have elim merubim and only one efa, yaviu el echad, rather bring one el and efaso le'akrivu kulam b'le'efais, rather than going ahead and bringing all the rams without their accompanying menachos. And that's Rav Shimon's din. That's Rav Shimon's din, and as the pasuk in Yecheskel is meramis to. Okay, this Mishnah it backs up, guys. This Mishnah is very geschmack. And it backs up to, again, Baruch Hashem, we have clarity in this. You have this pasuk in, one more time. V'kraftem ala lechem, shivas kvasim, tmimin, b'nei shana, one par ben bakar, two elim, yiyu. Now this is what, ala lechem, guys. This is not a carbon musaf. This is on the lechem. This, in Parshas Pinchas, is speaking also by the Atzeres. And we graphed them oil l'reich nichoyach l'Hashem parim b'nei bakar shnayim v'ayil echad shiva kvasim. We never think about this. These shiva kvasim are not the same. These are not the same animals. These psukim over here in Pinchas in Bamidbar is not the same as what? As this. Now here's a geschmacka, guys. This was not brought in the Midbar because the lechem has to be mimashvei seichem. It has to be from Eretz Yisrael dika crap. So this they didn't do in the Midbar. This, on the other hand, which wasn't ala lechem, they did bring in the midbar. This they did bring in the midbar. Now the Gemara is going to go into the ma'akiv is is the lechem akiv the kvasim or vice versa? So again, I think once you got, I was so happy. I'm just so happy, from a pedagogical position as a teacher, as a teacher, when you knew I was able, as soon as I put that together, I said it's going to click. It's just going to, go geschmiert. Rabbi, it's right. The teachers among us, or nothing. I mean, that's the way it goes. Hesh, heshi. That's the way it goes. Anyway, guys, Heshi taught in university. He used to cover for a guy. He was, yeah, I'm telling you, there was a guy who was a college professor, and I know Harold John Kelowitz did cover for him. So I wasn't being facetious. Hapar, yes, I was. Okay. Can't fool you, Baruch. Hapar v'elim v'akvasim v'aseir. Okay, this is all Parshas Emma, right? This is all Vayikra, yes? Ein ma'akvin es halechem. In other words, you can bring if they're not ma'akiv the lechem. If you can't bring them, you bring the lechem. But lechem ma'akvon, the lechem can't be ma'akiv them. Okay. However, guys, noticed aside from this, Tmimim, right? Here, guys, look at Pasuk Yates. U'shnei kvasim b'nei shana lezevach shlamim. These two kvasim, which are called the kivsei atzeres, the shalmei, the kvasim of the tzibur, fellas. These are shlamim of the tzibur, and they're unique because they're kachei kedoshim. That is under discussion. So the pasuk, the earlier pasuk, right? The earlier pasuk that's describing the 10 accompanying kabbanis, that is not ma'akiv. The lechem is not ma'akiv it. However, the two kvasim, that's a discussion. Guys, Nassim, you with me? You guys are here. There's, in addition to those were oilus. This is what these are. Our addition to the shtei lechem. Now you know the shtei lechem accompany the kivsei atzeres. Guys, what's the purpose of shtei lechem? It matters the chodesh in the Beis Hamikdash. Right? It's matters the chodesh in the Beis Hamikdash. Right? The oim is matter the chodesh in the Medina. This is matter the chodesh in the Beis Hamikdash. Now, with that in mind, hapar va'elim va'akvasim va'seir ein ma'akvin es halechem v'lechem akvon halechem akvin es hakvasim. In other words, if you don't have the lechem, you can't bring the two shalmei tzibur. Ve'in hakvasim ma'akvin es halechem. Right, but again, the kvasim are not ma'akiv the lechem. The lechem can be brought without it. Right, so if you don't have the lechem, you can't bring the kvasim. But you could bring the kvasim you could bring the lechem without the kvasim. Veina kvasim aknas lechem. Dibri Rabbi Akiva. These are words of Rabbi Akiva. So according to Rabbi Akiva, guys, what takes precedent? The lechem. Rabbi Akiva, what's the chashivas is the lechem. Amar Rav Shimon ben Nanis. Loi ki ela, the opposite. Hakvasim aknas lechem. If you don't have the kvasim, you can't bring the lechem. But you can bring the kvasim without the lechem. So according to Rav Shimon ben Nanis, it's the kvasim that take precedent. Again, Rabbi Akiva, the lechem takes precedent. It's mochashiv. And according to Rabbi Shimon ben Nanis, it's the kvasim, the kivsei atzeres that are mochashiv. Why do you know that? Shekem with sinu kishahay Yisrael b'midbar mem shana kirvu kvasim b'lei lechem afkan yikvu kvasim b'lei lechem. Now you know that they didn't bring the lechem in the midbar. So Rabbi Shimon ben Nanis is of the opinion they did bring the shnei kvasim. So what do you see? That the lechem is not ma'akav the shnei kvasim because they did bring it. They did bring it. That's what he says. Afkan yakrivu kvasim by lechem. Amr of Shimon says Rav Shimon by Yochai halacha kidvrei ben Nanis. The halacha is like Rav Shimon ben Nanis that you can bring the kvasim without the lechem, but you can't bring the lechem without the kvasim. Aval eina tam kidvarav. It's not what he says. Guys, what did Rav Shimon ben Nanis say? Guys, outside, they brought the kvasim in the midbar, but obviously they didn't bring the lechem in the midbar because it was the chutz la'aretz. But they did bring. So therefore, that act that they brought it shows it's more chashiv than the lechem. Guys, got it? Says Rav Shimon. The halacha is like that the keves takes precedent over the lechem, but not for the reason, because Rav Shimon holds they didn't bring the shnei kvasim in the midbar. and still it takes precedent. Again, that's the knech over here, guys. Here's the knech. Reb Shimon Halacha Kedivri Menachos that you can bring the kvasim without the lechem, but not because they did in fact bring it. Aval eina tam kidvarav. Shekol ha'omer b'chumash hapikudim karav b'midbar. The 10 kabbanis mentioned in Pinchas they did bring. V'chol ha'omer b'toras kahanim, and everything we saw in Parshas Emor ein karav b'midbar. Even the 2 kvasim. You, Rav Shimon ben Nana said they brought Parshas Emor. No, they didn't bring Parshas Emor. None of those kabbanis. They didn't bring the Shnei Kfasim in the Midbar. So what's your raya that the Shnei Kfasim take precedent over the Lechem? Right? Elu ve'elu. And when they came to Eretz Yisrael, they brought both Parshas Pinchas and Parshas Emor. If they ma'ani oimer yakrivu kvasim, ela, so why below lechem? Why can we make the kvasim lechem? If after all, if they didn't bring it in the midbar, so why? What's the precedent? If they shak kvasim matirinas atzmon, veloy alechem, beloy kvasim she'ein loy mi yatirena. Okay, guys, let's go back to our pigel days. Right? In order to be pigel, it has to be something that is a nitar. It becomes mutar. So a murim, there's a din of pigel. Basa, there's a din of pigel. Why? Because the dam matters the basa to be eaten and the murim to be burnt. There's no din in pigel in the dam. The dam is matter the pigel. What matters the shtei lechem? The kvasim. The kvasim are the matter of shtei lechem. And you can have pigel in shtei lechem. You can have pigel in the kvasim too. But the kvasim, the dam of the keves is matter. The lechem doesn't matter anything. The lechem is not matter. Lechem doesn't matter the kvasim. The male is geschmack. The kvasim take precedent simply why? You didn't bring it in the midbar. There's nothing to do with the midbar. You didn't bring them in the midbar. It takes precedent because it matters the lechem, whereas the lechem doesn't matter it. The maybe the lechem is not making the kvasim, but the kvasim making the lechem. That's what Rabbi Shimon says. The halacha is like benanis that kvasim take precedent, not lechem like Rabbi Akiva. However, but not for the reason. Why? Your reason, Rav Shimon Benanis, is because they bought the kvasim in the midbar, even though they didn't bring lechem. Says Rav Shimon Meyachai, they didn't bring kvasim in the midbar. The reason why it takes precedent because it matters the lechem. Very geschmack. Okay, but guys, you hear the kanech about the midbar, right? According to Rav Shimon Benanis, it was brought in the midbar. According to Rav Shimon Meyachai, it wasn't brought in the midbar. The two kvasim. Tan Rabbanan. It says v'kraktem ala lechem, right? So what does the pasuk say? Let's bring it up. The pasuk says, pasuk Yevches, here you go. V'kraftem ala lechem, shivat kvasim tmimim. Now when it says v'kraftem ala lechem, it's mashma chayva ala lechem. It's mashma that what? You can't bring these animals without lechem. V'kraftem ala lechem. Guys, what can you be makriv with the lechem? Yet then it goes with shiva kvasim tmimim. Says the Gemara, Tan Rabbanan, v'kratem alechem, chayv alechem. Then it says shivas kvasim tamimim, afa b'shein lechem. So you have it's contradictory. The first line and the first words and the second words. In keimat hamalem alechem. If you're telling me you can bring the zayin kvasim even if there's no lechem, what do you mean v'kratem alechem? Malamish nischayvu b'kvasim kodesh and nischayvu b'lechem. Divrei Rebbe Tarfon. Guys, you weren't chayiv to bring the kvasim till you could bring the lechem. So you didn't bring it in the midbar. Here's the way you're learning. Guys, look at the pasuk, please. Fikratam alechem is a chayva to be makriv al lechem. Then it says, shiva kvasim tamimim. Mashma, you're bringing them without the lechem. So what does it mean, viraktam al lechem? If you could bring these without the lechem, and the answer is, when could you bring these? Only when you brought the lechem. This is like Rav Shimon Bar Yochai in the Mishnah that they didn't bring these things in the midbar. They didn't bring them in the midbar. That's what the words say. Take out the words Rabbi Akiva Omer. Yochel hein kvasim amurim kan hein kvasim amurim b'chumesh pekudim. Guys, I might think these zayin kvasim over here. Guys, Yudches, you see zayin kvasim? I might think those zayin kvasim are the zayin kvasim in Parshas Shiva K'Meshana. I might think it's these. Amit kishata magia etzel parim ve'elim. You get to the parim. How many do you have, guys? How many do you have over here? Guys, look. How many parim? 2. How many elim? Ayol echad, 1. How many parim do you have here? One. How many rams do you have? Two. So obviously, like these are different, so too the Zayin Kvasim are different. I tell you, without the Gemara, you'd never see this in a million years, right? Guys, and you go over the Sedra 100 times. Did you notice this difference? You wouldn't notice it in a million years. You hear the difference. Just like the par over here is different than the parim over there. The Elim over here is different than the Ayel over there. Who are din? The Kvasim are different. Says the Gemara, Kashed mi yetzel parim ve'elim, ein ahein, el halolu boyim biglal atzman, v'halolu boyim biglal lechem. In Parshas Pinchas, they're coming by themselves. And in Parshas Emor, they're coming as a result of the lechem. Nimtza Masha Oma Bechumish Bekudim Korah Bamidbar. So this was brought since, guys. If this fell is look. If this has nothing to do with the lechem, of course it was born in the midbar. The lechem is ma'akiv the midbar, because you need it in Meretz Yisrael. So that one, as a result, since it had nothing to do with the lechem, it was brought in the midbar. Umash Omar B'Taras Kahanim like Korah Bamidbar, and this parsha was not brought in the midbar. Why? Because we gratim al lechem, and since there's no lechem in the midbar, you didn't bring them. Fred the Gemara v'dilma parim ve'elim lav inhu, kvasim inhu ninu. So I would tell you pasha, guys. The par here is not the parim over there. The elim over here is not the el over there. But maybe the kvasim are the same. Maybe this 7, that's 7. Here we have right. Maybe that's 7. And for the Gemara, hani ishtani, hani nami ishtani. When these were different, when the parim in Emor were different from the par, when the bulls were different and the rams were different, right? Then the sheep were also different. Says the Gemara, hani nami echrinu upar be'elim emayde ishtani dilma hachi kamar achmana iboy par shnei elim likari iboy shnei parim va'ayalecha likari. Right? How do you know, guys? Maybe it's just telling me you can do whatever you want. Bring either one par or 2 parim, and if you bring 2 parim, bring 1 ayel, and if you bring 2 ayel, bring 1 par. So maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it's not different. Says the Gemara, mide ishnei sidaron shmamino achrinenenu, because they changed the seder. If you look at Rashi, the one that says kvasim upar ve'elim, and in Pinchas it says parim elu kvasim. Here's par, guys. Par, elim, kvasim. First par, then elim, then kvasim. V'graftem, oila rechnechoy parim, elim, kvasim. It's the same order. So what am I talking about? What does Rashi mean? Kvasim upar ve'elim. Something's not right over here. Yud Daled. Oh, here it is, guys. Guys, excuse me. Guys, look, I'm sorry. The graftem alalechem, shivas kvasim, 7, then it goes to the par, and then it goes to the ayel. So it has the kvasim first. Par, ayel, kvasim. So when they change the order, you know they're different animals. I'm sorry, I didn't get it. Guys, good? Good? Okay, very good. Okay, so when you change the seder, they change the seder. Halechem ma'akiv hakvasim. So now we had a machloikis, the Mishnah. Rabbi Akiva said the lechem is ma'akiv the kvasim. If you don't have lechem, you can't bring the kvasim. And Reb Shimon ben Anis and Reb Shimon bar Yochai said the opposite. No, that the lechem is not ma'akiv, but the kvasim, if you don't have the lechem, you still can bring what? The kvasim. My time of the Rabbi Akiva who says that the lechem takes precedent. So guys, here we're going to go Baruch Hashem. We're going to focus on Parshas Emor now. Just Parshas Emor. Okay. So it says in Pasuk Chaf, V'heinif hakayin oisam tnufal l'fnei Hashem Al shnei kvasim kodesh yiyu l'Hashem l'kayim. So guys, what are you doing? You're waving the kvasim with the shtei lechem. V'hein if a some, them, you're waving them. So it says, kodesh yiyu l'Hashem. And it's going on the kvasim. This is meat. That's pasuk chaf. And it says in pasuk Yud Zayin, it says in pasuk Yud Zayin, guys, look, please look. Seichem taviu lechem tenufa shtayim shnei asroinim soilas tiyena chaymetz teifenu bikurim lashem. Here it says tiyena, here it says yihiu. Says Rabbi Akiva, let's see. Gomar yiyu Gomar, he learns yiyu from the word of tihiyena. Malahalon, just like over here, lechem. So too over here, guys, is clearly the lechem. Afkan lechem. So too, it's lechem. So he learns tiyena, yiyu, that lechem takes precedent. Ubenanis gama yiyu, he doesn't learn yiyu tiyena. He learns yiyu, malahalon kvasim, afkan kvasim. He learns from pasuk Yud Ches. What does it say, guys? Ve'elim shnayim yiyu. Guys, take a look quickly. Yud Ches. V'kratem alechem shivas kvasim tamimim b'nei shana pabim bacha echad ve'elim shnayim yiyu. Pasuk Chaf. Kodesh yiyu. So you see that Gezer Shavis. Rabbi Akiva's Gezer Shavis tells me tiyena lechem. He says yiyu tiyena. And he says Shem benanis yiyu, that the kvasim take precedent. Fred the Gemara benanis nami neilif mi tiyena. Why does he learn from tiyena, that's silas, that the lechem takes precedent? Malahalon lechem afkan lechem. So he says, Donin yiyu me yiyu, vein donin yiyu mi tiyena. He wants to learn the same words. It says yiyu over here, it says yiyu over there, rather than yiyu from a word that's not the same of tiyena. Fred the Gemara, my nafkamina doesn't have to be the same. A Tanad by Bishmael for the umpteenth time, the Shava Kohen and Boa Kohen, by Mitzvah, by a house has Sras in it. It says Shava Kohen one, then Boa Kohen. And we learn like Gezer Shava, the second time the same as the first time. Ayat doesn't say the same word. It says Zu Shiva Zu Ibia. Hanimili Hechad Leka de Damile. In other words, when do you learn out of Gezer Shava for unsimilar words? That's when you don't have an option of going with similar words. Like this case over here, you, rather than you to yena, then midamile yalfinan. I'd rather learn that you than you me from tiyena. Rabbi Akiva nami nelef you me you. L'chayra benanis is correct. Why did Rabbi Akiva jump to the word tiyena? So davar shematan l'kayim, davar shematan l'kayim, lafuki hani de'oilas ninu. He'd rather learn out the kvasim, guys. Kvasim go to the kayin, and lechem goes to the kayin. Masha'enkein, the other yiyu is speaking about an oila which is totally burnt. So even though tiyena is not the same word, even though, guys, it's not the same word, he'd rather go ahead with and compare the matnas kahuna, where the kohen is going to get something. By an oila, all he gets is the skin. He doesn't get meat. It gets totally burnt. So I'd rather learn the kvasim from the lechem, just like the lechem. So lechem takes precedent because it goes to the kohen, so to the kvasim go to the kohen. They argue in the pasuk itself. It says, "Kodesh yu laHashem laKayin, Kodesh yu laHashem laKayin." Rabbi Akiva savar ezo davar shekula laKayin, havi oimez alechem. Guys, the kvasim part goes to Hashem. The murim go to Hashem. Part goes to the Kayin, right? But Hashem gets a part of it. The lechem totally goes to the Kayin. So he goes. You're telling him, says Rabbi Akiva, Kodesh yu laHashem laKayin. So what goes to the Kayin? Lechem. Benana says, Miksiv Kodesh yu laKayin. Doesn't say Kodesh to the Kayin directly. Kodesh yu laHashem laKayin ksiv. Eze davar shemitzasel Hashem mitzasel laKayin. What's something that a Kayin Hashem shares with the Kahanim? Haviyayma elu kvasim. That's the kvasim yiyu. Rabbi Akiva Miksiv Kodesh yu laHashem u laKayin. It doesn't say Kodesh li Hashem u laKayin. And guys, the way Ben Nanas is learning is half and half, right? Part that goes to Hashem, part that goes to the Kohen. No, it doesn't say. It says La Hashem like Kohen Ksiv. What does it mean? It goes from Hashem to the Kohen. Kid Rav Huna, Dam Rav Huna, Kanu Hashem v'nasal Kohen. Hashem acquires it and gives it to the Kohen. The Kohen gets the lechem. Therefore, Rabbi Akiva learns out to Yena from lechem, and Ben Nanas learns out Yiyu from Oila.